Good evening, everyone. It's Serotonin. I wanted to share a bit more information gathering that I've been doing um, around this idea that we're in a construct and that we're on the exit. So, if any of you guys um, either don't know what I'm talking about or are uninterested in this subject matter, if this doesn't align with you, then chances are this is not information that's pertinent to you at the moment. Um, so I did want to give you a little heads up about that. So a lot of the information that I'm about to refer to corroborates the information that I have gathered from Yellow Rose for Texas, and I actually I got a comment earlier today from one of my viewers who asked about Yellow Rose for Texas, and I'm actually hopefully this is okay because I mean all the comments are public anyway. But Antonio Leatherworks said, "Hey Sarah, can you tell me where Yellow Rose for Texas gets her information? Is she channeling or receiving downloads or what? It's incredible stuff. Just wondering." And thanks for tuning us on to Michelle Gibson too. She's pretty incredible as well. So my response was, and this is just what I've gathered from about a year and a half of listening to Yellow Rose for Texas, and I've listened to her videos and watched her information multiple times because it's really dense. There's a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of audio stuff. There's a lot of visual stuff. There's a lot of written stuff, and she has kind of like a running, like a rolling script. And so very often, what I've had to do is go through the video once, just listening, then go through it reading, and then go through it in total because what she's talking about anyway, it's there's layers to it. Okay, so my response here is I don't think she's from here. I think she's part of the team that's helping us exit. I think she might be in the place that is holding our real bodies, think Matrix or Avatar. I think we're in a souped up VR system thingy. I think she's working with the nurses, and I'm using that term very loosely. I don't know exactly what I mean by nurses. I don't know. Sorry, I don't know if nurses is what I mean. That's what I meant to say. She's think she's working with the nurses unit at the place we came to take at the place we came to take part in this game. I'm debating doing another video on the concepts of how I've come across and how they fit together. Her origin would be part of that. And then I also wrote, she talks about being in the service hub. This is a term she's used multiple times, and that we will have a chance to meet her face to face upon the exit. So, yeah, and then there's a lot of stuff that she talks about there being like some kind of display in the sky. She's referred to us going to Mr. MBB333's channel. He is a guy who does literally like daily videos and sky watching. He has people all over the planet sending him interesting pictures of fantastic things in the sky, and his channel is phenomenal. So I highly recommend you watch or check out Mr. MBB333. So I was going through the comments on the Yellow Rose for Texas video the other day, and there was a video of someone linked to another man's channel in Adam something or other. I can't remember his name right now, and he had a clip from the NASA cams, the same stuff that Yellow Rose uses, and it showed what he said was Venus basically being obliterated. Um, and it's really interesting because I'm kind of stuck between this idea of us being stuck in this like physical construct that looks like an orrery. And if you don't know what an orrery is, because I certainly didn't maybe 6 months ago, if you've ever seen the movie The Dark Crystal, Aughra, the ogre, sort of seer, has a giant orrery in her home. And basically, what that is it's a mechanical version of the solar system that runs on gears. And so you either wind it up or you give it some sort of power source and it just rotates on its own or does its thing, whatever. We could also be, I mean, a lot of people have said that we're in some sort of virtual reality thing. And so this brings me to a couple of quick things. So I wanted to introduce you to another channel, but I also want to talk to you a little bit about my own personal experiences. And I've done a couple of quick videos on this before, but I wanted to go over this again because I've had some pretty crazy stuff happen to me. Um, and so as a child, here, let me just collapse down this stuff for a minute. As a child, I had one very, very standout dream um, that happened. I don't know why, I was being accompanied by a bunch of Muppets from the Muppet Show, sorry, from Sesame Street, onto a plane. I traveled a lot as a child with my family, and we were going on a plane, and I was going to be taken somewhere. I was going to be taken back somewhere, and I didn't like the idea of doing that. And so before, as we were going down this very, very long hallway, which did look to me like kind of the kind of hallways that you walk down after you're disembarking from an air flight, and I was meeting this king, or this sort of leader, this person who's in charge of everything, and I basically asked if I could go back. And he was like, "Are you sure you want to go back?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm really sure I want to go back." And so he's like, "Okay, well then, do this and do that." And I was able to come back. I woke up immediately. And um, I also had a couple of glitches where things suddenly appeared on the other side of a pane glass door that didn't, had no, there was no reason for it to have suddenly appeared on the other side of it, and things like my cat. Um, and then when I was in my early 20s, no, not even, it was in my teen years, well before the movie The Matrix came out, because I was born in the 70s. So my brother one day just sort of said to me, what if it was just at the very beginning of virtual reality? And he said, what if we're just like hooked up to some kind of machine, and like we're like hooked on like a big hanger in a warehouse, and we're just living inside this virtual reality machine. Like, what if that was our real life? And I remember thinking, because when The Matrix came out, I was like, oh my gosh, like, wow. And this very same brother actually is schizophrenic, and he is currently very medicated, and almost a completely different person altogether. And the more I think about this idea about virtual reality suits, and game and all this kind of stuff, like, it makes sense that he's such a different person, because at a certain point his personality just completely changed. It was well after his sort of nervous breakdown, so to speak. And he was quite, he was quite unhinged for about 10 years, but it was still really very much him. And then he began getting medicated, and it's like he's a completely different person. And it's one of those things that you have to really know that person well to understand that they are a completely different person, if you know what I mean. Not everyone would pick up on it. Um, Especially people who just meet him would have no idea, obviously. But even old friends don't always see it straight away. It's very strange. Anyway, um, so yeah, so all that to say, and the reason I bring that up is because I've been party through him to some very interesting concepts, which in more recent years have turned out to be heavily supported by many other people's experiences. Um, and a biggest one of all, the biggest one of all, and the whole reason I even started my YouTube channel, for those of you that have been with me since the beginning, um, I went through 7 years of going to the same dream place. Ever, anytime I dreamt, I was in this different world, and it wasn't a repetitive dream. I wasn't going through the same actions. I was having a completely separate life in this place. I had a job. My mom lived there. She lived down the beach, actually. We lived on the coast. I could describe to you, I'm not going to get into it right now, but I could describe to you my whole job situation and stuff. And I have done this in the past. I'm less interested at this point in understanding. Like, I was thinking that I'm remembering the past. Like, I went through a phase where I was like, I'm remembering, um, the one world culture, the Tartarian or Moorish culture, like depending on whose history you look into. And just by the by, I'm super glad you guys are all enjoying Michelle Gibson, but I just do want to remind you that she's just one aspect of the historical, like the historical narrative has been covered up, and Michelle Gibson she does amazing work, but she's only giving one perspective, and it's only one theory. So there's a lot of different theories out there, and we don't have any clue as to what is correct or not. So um, I don't want to be bonded to her ideas. I think she's very interesting. And that goes for the Santos Bonacci. That goes for all the stuff that I've put out here, the astrotheology, the Freak Sense TV, all that stuff. Um, I don't abide by any of it or all of it. I just find all of this interesting. It's all pieces of the puzzle. It's all deep, deep findings that other people have not found and are worth our attention. They are all worthy of our attention, but I am famously anti-shaman and anti-guru, and I don't believe that people should be putting all their faith into others, and especially others that want to hold power, like the types of people that refer to themselves as shaman or gurus or priests or leaders of any kind. I think one has to lead the self, and it's one of the reasons I stopped being a healer of any kind. I used to do psychotherapy, and then I did Reiki for a little while, and I stopped all of that because it's up to the individual responsibility. Everyone's path is their own, and as much as I wanted to help, and I did for many, many years, it wasn't really the right thing to do, in my opinion, for my path to create more and more dependency among other people, including myself. Dependency is not what's going to wake us up. So I digress. Going back to this dream life, in more recent years, that dream life. So the dream life ended very abruptly when I moved to Hawaii. And in more recent years, I have had very curious dreams that feel very comfortable and very familiar. And where I am is a place like a hospital room. And I'm in a huge room, like a huge room with beds, and there's a couple of beds in each room, and there's like translucent curtains that separate off, they sort of section off all of the like the beds and stuff. And each bed, each section has more than one bed, like there's a couple. And then there's a pretty incredible bathroom in terms of the function of the bathroom, like what the bathroom is like, but it's very functional. And like, so if you've ever been lucky enough to have a very nice hospital room, it feels like that. If you're catching if you're picking up what I'm putting down, right? It feels like a hospital room. It's not fancy, but the bathtub's pretty cool. Like, it seems to, like, you can seem to kind of sleep in it at times. And there's a shower that kind of seems to wash you from above and from so if you're standing, there's like jets that kind of go down all down your back. And then these other pipes that come around like a little rib cage around you, and then spray water to, so it's like super nice, fancy, in terms of like luxury compared with what we might call your average bathroom here, but it's still very functional. Um, And I've woken up to that place a number of times and felt super comfortable to be there. And I don't feel vulnerable or that I'm being trapped or enslaved or hurt, anything like that. There's no feeling of that. And it really feels like, I don't know, like a job, or I don't know how to describe it. Like a recovery, I don't know. Um, and then when I was answering the question from Antonia Leatherworks earlier today, and I started talking about the service hub and describing who I think Rose is, it really hit me like, oh my gosh, have I actually been there? And I don't know. I really don't know. I have no idea. But I know I had those dream visits beforehand. Okay, so now that I've got all that off my chest, I found a new channel today. Her name is Lisa M. Harrison. And I wanted to recommend, if you are interested in the Yellow Rose for Texas stuff and anything that I've been talking about in this video today, I would want to recommend that you listen to or watch Deconstructing the Construct episode 69 and the next one, which is Deconstructing the Construct episode 70. And I've watched both of those, and I feel like there's a significant amount of information in there to share. Now, someone was asking in her comment section, well, how are you getting all this information? Who are all these voices and stuff? Are they downloads? Blah, blah, blah. She said no. They come in different forms. She doesn't. Now, there's a very common theory, and I agree with this 100%, that downloads or channeling, that's not coming from God. That's not coming from the one, the all source, God. Channeling, all that stuff, it could be anyone. There's voice to skull technology. There's all kinds of things. There's apparently, I mean, if you look at Mr. MBB333's channel, there looks to be energy signatures underneath these cloak ships above our clouds. I mean, anybody could be talking to you through channeling. It could be complete and total BS too. It could just be the person who is quote unquote channeling you, having you on. So, like I have no time for people who call themselves channelers. I had one friend who does channeling. She's the only person that I would ever trust, and it's because she refused to be paid for channeling. She outright refused to be paid for channeling because it's not what God wanted. So she may not have been channeling God, and she never thought that she was, but she knew that God did not want her to be charging for her channeling. So I always found that very compelling, and so I was willing to listen to her. Anyway, what's going on here, I believe, is they're actually getting information from this service hub that Yellow Rose for Texas talks about. So anyway, so that's my video on what I think is going on. Apparently we're done this game. We've been playing a virtual reality game. The game is done. It's light versus dark. The dark side has cheated the entire time, so they forfeited any opportunity to replay. And we're basically waiting to get unplugged from our system. It's literally, the clock's done. We're only in the game right now because we need assistance to get out of the game. And so while we're waiting, okay, so look at it this way. Okay, so you go to the fairground or whatever, I don't know where you live, but Canada's Wonderland or Centerville or the CNE or the X or whatever, and you get on your roller coaster or whatever it is, and you need to have the people from the park buckle you in, and then when the ride is done, you have to wait for the people from the park to take you out of your seat, right? To unbuckle the seatbelt that only they know how. And so while we're waiting for the the spotty young teenager to undo our seatbelt, the dark side is basically doing whatever they're picking up whatever they can at the theme park and they're throwing it. So, you know, they're seeing garbage on the floor and they're throwing it. They're seeing whatever it is they're doing, you know. If we're on a Ferris wheel, they're on the top and they're dumping their chips on our head while we're waiting for the fairground operator to get us out of our seatbelts. And that's essentially where we're at right now. At this particular timestamp on this video, or slightly prior to this, she's talking to one of, she runs a little group, and she's talking to one of the guys in the group, and he's talking about how he's seeing, excuse me, this analogy of us being born through a womb. And I've actually heard this through a few other people too. We're basically being birthed. And he said, you know, at this point, the head is crowning. And this was January 25th. So he was like, oh, look at the state of the royals. You know, they've had their crowns, the crown is being removed off of the queen's head. The crown itself is being, you know, taken apart. And then here we are with the coronavirus. And what's very interesting is in the Deconstructing the Construct episode 70, she talks about at about the same amount of time left to the video, some of her contributors from her group decide to put in their findings. And one of the people says that this game is infected with the virus, and she immediately just started talking about the virus. So make of all this what you will, really, like, do. But yeah, that's what I got today, and that's what I got so far, and that's just me filtering through the different things that I have figured out of my own digging. Don't take my word for it, guys. What I keep hearing from everyone is that this is a very individualized path, the exit. Everybody gets up and out of their seat in their own way. Just like, you know, when everybody leaves the classroom, you don't all just stand up and help each other at the door. Everybody turns around, grabs their own coat, their own sweater, picks up their own garbage, figures out where they put their pen, etc., etc. So we all leave the classroom, so to speak, the game, the fairground ride, in our own way. So anyway, make of it what you will. I hope that was enjoyable or informative or one of the two. Okay, bye guys, talk to you soon.